Good afternoon, investigators. Mike Evans from the Australian Security Academy with episode 277 of Spy Curious, the Australian government investigation, fraud control, loss adjusting, security risk management weekly news. A couple of months ago, I had to introduce the concept of our recognition for people with workplace health and safety. We had a little medal made up, and I've still got 4 I've got to issue, but for raising mental health awareness. And I had to introduce the concept of that to our audience that watch this each week, because I wanted them to enter into a competition and send a little video of what they did. And here's my a brief look at my introductory collections type thing, because it was the way I explained introducing the concept.
So this is what I collect. Doilies. Look at this one. It's got tassels all around all 4 sides of it, and it's a square metre in width. This one, look at the inlaid, a crew-cut vintage pattern of that flower on that doily. It's one of my favourites in my whole collection. This one came from Australia's first fleet on the HMS Cirrus. It wasn't on one of the...
Now, I feel a little bit guilty because people wrote into me and said, Mike, that's fantastic. You collect those. My grandmother used to have those, and it brought back really lovely memories. And we just got overwhelmed with people saying this to us. So it was a concept introduction to try and rev people up and make them aware of what we were doing with the little medal that we had printed. Now, there are other winners of it, apart from the ones that we've shown you that have won over the weeks. And they will get theirs. I have received them. They've got to be engraved next week and they will be posted out. But another person watching that video sent me some doilies. Let's have a look at what I've got.
So how absolutely amazing is this? Direct from Athens, this pure silk, raw silk doily, sent to me all the way from Greece here in Australia. I've added this to my collection. It's absolutely brilliant, from the greatest place on earth. Look at this doily over here. This is a doily to actually die for. Look, those stitches and the pattern, it's absolutely wonderful, and it's now #1 in my collection. Look, they just keep coming. This beautiful cotton one is ideal for tea parties, and just look at that. It's just spider webbish from the best place on earth, Greece. Now, everybody who collects doilies should have one of these. Look at that structure. It is amazing, and it's absolutely concentric in its design. I really, really like that one. And finish it. Check this out. It's doily of the century from Athens in Greece. Not just is it made of exquisite pure silk and raw cotton, it has the white cotton pattern, which is a heavy 6 denier pattern all the way around it. What a magnificent doily. Thank you, Evan. That is really great. I've added it to my collection, and actually I'm going to go and have them all dry cleaned and contact my insurance broker to increase the value of my insurance of our collection.
So what was intended to be a little bit of fun got quite out of hand, with people getting right into it. And I'm really proud of the fact that we introduced the concept of getting people involved in investigations who listen to sad news every day, aware of mental health, and by issuing a little mental health award in recognition of what they did. They had to send in a video showing how they address their mental health and unwound, instead of just working all day in investigations. So that's what we did, and we're going to continue on with it, and we're even going to come out with one later on for fraud control as well. So that's an interesting uptake of what's been happening there. If you didn't see it this week, this lady, Mel Thornton, who fought for the right for women to drink at public bars in Queensland, died in Queensland this week. She was a women's rights activist back in the day when that was not a cool thing to be. And what she did, she went into a bar in Brisbane with a friend and they chained their ankles to the bar. So they couldn't get taken out by security, or well, I don't think they had security back then, but they couldn't get taken out by the police. And the police were called and there was all sorts of fuss and carry on. And Mel and a friend were arrested, but they brought attention to the fact that women were not allowed in a men's bar in the 60s in Australia. It's unthinkable today, but back then that was a big issue. And Meryl, who passed away this week, if you've heard the name before, she's actually Sigrid Thornton's mum. So condolences to the Thornton family. That was a sad passing this week, but it's very newsworthy for us as a person who changed the thinking for hospitality in Australia in a positive manner. We try and do that here. We try and promote the cause of ladies joining into the investigation industry. We don't really have to, because more than 60% of them in it are ladies, but that is not generally known. And so we really try and encourage that through this program. G'day, Chris. Great to see you, mate. Yes. Glad you enjoyed the doilies. Hope that coffee's going down nicely, Chris. You're having a good relax with that cup of coffee. So lots of news this week. If you didn't see it, over in Investigations Uni, Casey spoke today about virtual machines and using them and setting them up, that sort of thing. And Pat Flynn answered this question for us about when you're an investigator and you're faced with someone telling you that something's off the record. So both those things were addressed today in Investigations Uni. If you're an Australian Security Academy student, it's in the email. That's where your invite is. So check it out and keep up. We did have some technical problems. We were late starting and there was some sound issues, but still we got the message across, I'm sure. We're after, in New South Wales, a new licensed investigator. If you're brand new, you just got your license, this organisation wants to pay you $78,000 a year plus super, and you've never done an investigation before in your life. So if you want that job, and what the owner of the company said to me, he said, the best investigators come from your RTO, Mike. Well, I'm not surprised, because he came from my RTO too. So he wants an Australian Security Academy student who's been instructed by Pat Flynn, Casey Pines, several other people, Andrew Baldock, several others I'm just too busy to mention. But certainly that's what he said. Here we go. Thanks, Evan. Really appreciate the doilies you sent me, mate. I now have the world's best collection of doilies. So this job's available. It's on our Australian Security Academy Facebook page. With this job, you have to send me your resume and I will pass it on to the employer. They want a brand new student. You don't have to have experience. You have to have a license. Okay, so get in touch with me. Don't ring me up. I'm too busy. All right? You send me your resume. I will pass that resume on to that employer. Whoops, done that. This one came out in the news this week. A deeply embarrassed Sharon Marie says she was grieving when she attacked a protester at the Deborah Conway concert in Hobart. Now, Sharon had been nursing her very ill husband who died after a long time. She was worn out. She was fatigued. She booked herself into the Deborah Conway concert. It was the first night out since the passing of her husband. She explained all this in court. Some protesters came in about something happening in the Middle East and disrupted the concert. Sharon, in her 50s, was basically they're excited. She's been to several other Deborah Conway concerts, and these people are disrupting. And unfortunately, in the heat of the moment, she took her wine glass, she smashed it on the stage, and she threatened one of the protesters with a shard of glass. It was totally out of character, and she was in court about it this week. And basically, they asked to see her criminal history, and she had none. Now, this is a serious offence. You're threatening someone with a weapon, a sharp weapon, right? This is very serious. And they looked at her criminal history, and there was no criminal history. And the magistrate took all that into account and, yes, did record a conviction, but didn't send her to jail. Basically, the magistrate said, yes, well, you went through all this stress with your husband, or we accept that, you haven't done it before. It's the first time. You haven't got a criminal record. You're at the Deborah Conway concert, and basically...
Meantime, you just keep those...
Sorry, basically... So that's what happened down in Hobart this week. It was in the news. The lady's very embarrassed about it. She was tired, exhausted, and the court, being very fair, took all that into account, which is pretty good of the courts. They are very fair. Also down in Tasmania this week, a paramedic lost his job from back in 2019, I think, where he tried to remove an object from a person who requested it to be removed in the presence of another paramedic in the back of an ambulance. The person didn't want to go to hospital. But anyway, it ended up taking her to hospital for this object to be removed, operated on correctly, but the paramedic lost his job over it. And that's all in the news this week. He went to the Fair Work Commission, and they upheld that position of the company, that he should have lost his job as a result of it. There were protocols in place, and a lot of them were followed, but some weren't. And they looked at his history, just like they looked at the previous person's history, and there was other issues over the years of behavioural misconduct stuff. Minor, it wasn't massive. Different time, different age. They applied today's rules to it, and that was upheld that he would lose his job. So that's just in the news. If you're into your outcomes from the Fair Work Commission, you can look up the paramedic at New Norfolk in Tasmania and read it for yourself. I thought it was a very light-on investigation, and it was very lightly reported. I don't know who did the investigation. I don't know who took the statements all the way through it. I was going to say there's not enough information here. That's what was going through my head. That was my professional opinion. A licensed factual investigator is required by Analytic Solutions in Sydney, New South Wales. They want someone with experience. So if you're an experienced factual investigator, apply for that job. If you're not experienced, apply for this one. Send me your resume in an email, okay? And I will pass it on to the employer. This employer has had tremendous success with other Australian Security Academy graduate students, and he wants other Australian Security Academy graduate students as well. Now, he's not the only employer who's had that level of success, all right? So certainly other ones have too, and you saw them on our program a couple of weeks ago at Pinkerton's. They're after investigators through Queensland, New South Wales and Victoria. They're after factual investigators. If you would like a job at Pinkerton's, send me your resume and say, hey, Mike, I'm looking for that job at Pinkerton's. No problem, I'll pass it on to them. Clarity Workplace Solutions have employed 2 Australian Security Academy graduate students this week, and they want some more. Southern Cross, who are investigations, who are graduate students of the Australian Security Academy as a company, they want investigators in Victoria, and the Seeker Group are looking for investigators in Victoria as well. If you're looking for these jobs, you can go to the Australian Security Academy Private Investigator, Corporate and Government Investigations job page and see it there. One of the issues we've been talking about in our in-class programs for government throughout this year has been sovereign citizens. Australian Taxation Office has fired warning shots over a hopelessly flawed sovereign citizen movement's tax advice, which is online. Now, we reported in this program 2 years ago how TikTok was telling people what to do, how to rip off the tax system, and a lot of people who took up that TikTok's advice went to jail. So again, here we are reporting what the ATO has to say over a sovereign citizen's tax advice. And basically, she's calling herself a spiritual accountant and giving advice to people and telling them how not to pay tax. Now, I can do that too. So let's say your financial chakras are out of balance. I can give you advice. Just send me $10,000 into my bank account and I'll give you lots of advice as well. Okay, so she's doing it and the tax officer not happy about it, and they're issuing that warning about sovereign citizens throughout Australia. Now, it's sovereign citizens that basically executed the 2 police officers in Queensland a couple of years back at Christmas time, and it's been an enormous problem. The biggest problem we strike as government regulatory compliance officers with Certificate 4 in government investigations is sovereign citizens declare their little owned backyard or whatever it is a separate province and carry on about it. But what they do is they accept things like toxic waste onto their property, and it goes onto the neighbour's property and into the water system and stuff like that. That's how they finance their sovereign citizenship. So they don't have to work like you and me and pay tax. Quantum Corp are looking for investigators for general insurance in New South Wales. So get in touch with Quantum Corp down in South Australia. Great government role. You'll need a diploma of government investigation for this one at the Independent Commission Against Corruption. They need that in Victoria at the moment too. Kerrigans are after surveillance investigators in Brisbane, Sunshine Coast and Gold Coast in Queensland. So if you're a licensed private investigator and you do surveillance, get in touch with Kerrigans. They're looking for you. Workplace investigator and consultant is wanted by Wise Workplace Solutions down in Victoria. This is a great one. Up on the Gold Coast this week in my local court at Southport, Clinton Wade and Della has faced the Southport Magistrates Court in connection to an alleged crime. And he faced court and is seeking electronic surveillance material. Now, no one tells you this, but when you go to court as the surveillance operative who filmed that person doing whatever it was that they can't do, selling drugs, working in another workplace when they can't work in this one, is they get you in the court. They go, all right, did you take this video of 7 hours of this person doing the wrong thing? And you go, yes, I did, on these dates and times or whatever. And they go, how did you set up the camera? Show us. Show us how you set up the tripod. Show us how you put the camera on the tripod. Show the court how you turn that camera on. Show the court how you take the battery out and put the battery in. Show the court how you charge that. They go right through it. They're trying to find something that you can't do with your equipment so they can cast doubt on what it is. So he has requested the surveillance equipment so that they can cast doubt in the case where he's selling drugs. Now, this is what happened, and this is what happened to Tony Mockpool. Tony Mockpool in Victoria, one of the biggest drug dealers in Victoria at the time, would not speak on the phone and would not speak in a room or a vehicle because he knew he'd be listened to. He would only talk when he was walking. That's the only time he would speak to any of his people that were doing his pickups and deliveries and whatever for him. He'd go for a walk, like walk through the park. And he walked the same way every time he went for a walk. So the police set up listening devices in the rubbish bins, in the trees, in the bushes, all along the route where he walked. And they were able to listen to every conversation he had. They knew what his go-fors were going to go and be doing, where they were going, what they were picking up. So they knew when was the best time to raid this, cause the maximum disruption, had the evidence to put him in jail, and he's still in jail today. Okay, so there's all sorts of kerfuffle about person X as a witness and informant and all that sort of thing, carry on, all that sort of thing happening, but it hasn't got him out. So that's how they got him. Now, as soon as they found this out in court, he and his solicitor demanded to see the listening devices and the equipment. And the police in the department where Pat Flynn used to work, right, in the special technical group, okay, they had to supply all that to that solicitor. And it's useless from then on, because then the crooks know what to look for. Now, that solicitor, he spoke once when I was at the AISP, in an AISP meeting, and he was really interesting. He spoke, he was just an ordinary knock-around bloke. He represented the 3 terrorists in Victoria that refused to stand for the magistrate when the magistrate entered the court over their matter. And he honestly said, I didn't know that they were going to do that. I thought he'd set them up to do that, so it'll be a big kerfuffle, smoke screen, all that sort of thing, like loiterings and informants and all the big smoke screen. That's all it is, right? And I thought that he'd set, and he said, no, I didn't know. It was really interesting. If you ever want to know about the benefits of a really good workers' compensation industry association, the AISP has it in droves. They're great. All right. In Victoria, the AISP are really good. If you're looking for a national one, the AILA, the Australian Insurance Law Association, that's having their conference on in Victoria, in the Queensland next month. I might even pop down to that and have a look and say good day to a few people. So that's happening there. But I got the opportunity, after knowing how Tony Mockball, how they set it up, where they put these listening devices and trees and rubbish bins, fake rocks, cyclists riding past, we're all police, ladies pushing prams and walk like they see in the movie, all police, all listening devices, listening to those conversations. So pretty clever. But like this guy wanted to do, he wanted to get the equipment so he can carry on with business as usual in the future and know what to look for. And again, that's the problem with surveillance that's been done on someone in the past. You, the surveillance operative, have never been told that the person's had surveillance done on them in the past, so you park in the wrong place where the previous surveillance operative did. And they know exactly when they're under surveillance again. So that's what happens. How about that for a good question? What is the best website to watch or read about court cases and what happens? Great question, Nesreen. That is absolutely brilliant. Every court reports its outcomes. And you can jump on the Queensland Supreme Court website, type in civil cases, that's what you want. You don't want criminal cases, that's what police do. We're not interested in that. Type in civil cases, workers' compensation or CTP liability. And if something's really big and it's got there, they will have it. And you'll be able to do a search. Like, I'm starting to sound like Casey, aren't I? I want to geek out on everything. Uh-oh, I just got sprung. Anyway,
Yeah, thanks for that.
I'm answering Nesreen's question, Casey. All right, give me a break, please.
Mhm.
Nesreen, yeah, you can get on the Sydney Supreme Court or any court. You can get on basically the Mildura Court or the Parramatta Court and have a look to see if they've got records of their cases there. So you are free to do it, and they report it. And some of the students who are doing our courses, they have to go to attend court and report on outcomes. Well, they've got an elderly parent they're caring for, or a partner or kids or whatever, and they can't. That's how they do it. They research the cases they have to report on by searching the court's own websites. All right, so great question, Nesreen. We should have devoted a whole program of uni on that. Good on you. That's well done. So feel free to go to any court and look around. But the most important piece of advice I can give you is you can go to any court you want and watch it. Just walk through the door. If it says open above the court, you can go in and watch the proceedings. That's our system. All right. And you can't go into the children's court or the family court. They're locked out. You won't get in there. But any other court, if it says open, you can be there. Now, they do clear courts on private matters, and I'm glad you raised it, Nesreen, because it's in our next piece of news for the week. And this is where it comes in to it, and Casey's been changing stuff. So I've got to go back where I was. So one came out in, this is a typical example of where they clear a court and won't have anyone in there. So yesterday, a guy's been charged with filming upskirting ladies in a shopping centre with a camera hidden in a walking stick. So this has happened this week in Queensland. This is really serious stuff, okay? You're not allowed to do it. They found more images at his house in Jamboree Heights. So he's collected all these images, right? He's basically got a spank bank, and he's collected these other images where he's gone around shopping centres. The police have raided it and seized them at his house, and he was remanded in custody as a result of this. And this goes back to February 28th, and it's come out again this week. He was filming a young underage girl as she went up an escalator. And the police found his camera obtained indecent videos and photographs of women taken in public areas in the centre without their permission, their knowledge, or their consent. You cannot do it. In Queensland, it's a $300 fine. Under the Crime Act, it's 3 years in prison. Maximum penalty. This is really serious stuff if you start doing this. And it goes up a notch if it's at the swimming pool, or it involves ladies' underwear as well, where there's an expectation of privacy, and it's designed that, to prevent people from doing it under the Crimes Act 1899. So when you have this going on in court, usually you can't go in because the magistrate will say, this is an embarrassing situation for the witnesses. We won't have this, I'm going to clear the court. And they do that. Everybody has to leave. The magistrate leaves, you have to stand, then they clear the court, and then the magistrate comes back in. So great that you raised it. I'm pleased that you did, because that's a really important issue. So if that happens to you when you're in court, just go to the one next door. There'll be another room there with another case going on, and it'll be, an armed robbery or something like that. And you'll be able to sit there and watch what happens. Big news this week. Down at Pinkerton's in Victoria, Angelo Prismanic has retired, and there he is. He's handing in his Pinkerton's badge on Facebook for his last day. I hate to think what Angelo would have got up to on his last day. Would have been a hell of a lot of fun at Pinkerton's on Tuesday. But if you're an investigator for Pinkerton's, linked to their American arm, not their Australian one, people, they give you a Pinkerton's investigation badge. Despite all my protests, everybody from Pinkerton's that gets one of those sends me a photo of it with that, just to rub it in like the doilies, okay? Other news before we come to Casey this week, SLED have been emphasising about close associates. If you are a licensed private investigator and you don't declare that you're a close associate of that pervert charged with, filming women without their knowledge or consent, you could lose your license. So keep that in mind. You're watching episode 277 of Spy Curious, and I've got to do a quick change so Casey can do a thing. Hi, Case.
Hello. Today is very much a basic tip, but it is one that is very, very important. And I had an investigator come to me last week because they had their email compromised and their social media compromised, and they were worried about computers and things like that being compromised because they had the same password for everything. We have been hacked so much in the past couple of years. Well, our data has been leaked, I should say. The companies that we entrust our usernames and our passwords, our personal information with, we've been breached left, right, and center. The likelihood that your password is on the internet is incredibly high. So please, please, please use a password manager. Now, I use Bitwarden, and it is my favorite because it's open source, and all of the people that I trust in the industry use Bitwarden. It's fantastic. It will help you manage your passwords. You need one password for the rest. Well, not for the rest of your life. I change mine every 6 months. So you need just one password. And it has to be quite long and complicated, but you obviously have to be able to remember it. But it's just this one password. So when you have that one password, you log into your Bitwarden, and that is your password manager. It can help you generate passwords that's never been seen in a data leak before, and it will save them for you. They have browser extensions, so you just use that. You put the browser extension there. So if you go to your email, if you're logged into Bitwarden in the browser extension, yes, exactly. So that's have I been pwned? If you Google that, you can go to that website and put in your email address or phone number and see what information is, if you've been in any data leaks. So it's really great, a really great resource. Thanks for raising that, Evan. Perfect. So go and have a look at that website. So have I been pwned? Just Google it, and then you just put in your email address, all your different ones, and to see if you've been in any data leaks. But never, ever, ever use the same password over and over again. Because if you're in one data leak, and a lot of people say to me, oh, I use the same password, but just a different variation. So I might use my dog's name. So I might use Rosie and then put my birth date at the end of the year, 86, and then an exclamation mark. But then sometimes I'll use Rosie and put my son's birth date at the end of the year. They try all of this stuff, and there is information that is leaked about you. So they know your birth year. They know your son's date of birth. So please use something like Bitwarden. As I said, it generates passwords for you and saves them again for you. So you just have to remember that one password, which is your master password to get into your Bitwarden account. And it's free. So there is really no excuse. It's a little bit of a learning curve, but it will save you so much pain in the end. There is no reason for people in this day and age, especially professional investigators, especially desktop investigators, to not have a password manager. So it's incredibly powerful. It saves you time. It's going to save you from being breached, from losing your social media to the different files that you have on your computer. This person's, all of their social media accounts were taken over last week, and they managed to get access to the email as well because they use the same password for everything, or minor variations thereof. So again, Bitwarden, it's fantastic. There's heaps of YouTubes that are really short about it, on just like a quick way to start using it. I have the browser extension on my phone. I have it locally hosted on my computer, and I also have the app on my phone. So it's really, really handy that way.
How much recovery did it take to get all that back, Casey?
We didn't get her social media back, but we managed to get her email back, thank goodness, because she had a backup email address that they hadn't have removed at that time. So, well, I say she, it wasn't a she.
Okay, thanks very much, Casey. That's a great tip, and it's a very important one. You say it till you're blue in the face, but it's free. Evan sent you the Greek symbol for investigators, the owl symbol, fridge magnet, so you didn't miss out in the doily thing.
That's amazing. Thank you, Evan.
So that's, you'll be able to pick that up tomorrow night when you come around and do your thing. And hey, look at this, check this out, my Greece key ring.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yes, to the eye. It's the all-seeing eye. Right. So, thanks, Evan, mate. You're a champion. Really appreciate it. People, thank you for participating today and asking questions and being involved. We really like to answer your questions as we go on the fly, and also answer questions such as we did today about off the record at Investigations Uni. So please keep sending them in.
Meantime, you just keep those cards and letters coming in, folks.
You're old if you know who that was and what that means. You're very old, and Casey has got no idea. She's going to have to Google that one. Here we go. Oh, the Greek god of investigations is the owl.
That's awesome. I love it.
All right. Good on you. Thanks for watching, people. We've got to run. Be back next week. See you then. Thanks for your participation. Thanks, Judy. Great for you to check in. Talk to you next week. See you, people.
Next week.